Okay, let's kick it off. Really just so you get a little bit of background on who is presenting, for those of you who don't know who I am. I am Perth born and bred. I moved from Western Australia back in 2002 to the East Coast. I studied accounting, finance and management at Murdoch University, and I graduated to a chartered accounting firm in West Perth, which was really good. I was in tax and business services, but I quickly realised that I wasn't that passionate about accounting, and I was really more passionate about building a portfolio of property. And I must admit, I really did fall into the industry because it wasn't clear my path early on, but I soon found out once I got a taste for getting involved with property investment and helping clients buy investment properties, it was really became very clear that was my overriding passion. So whilst I was an accountant, I started a property business part-time, and I quickly discovered that my part-time business was bringing me more joy. I was getting more satisfaction out of that, so I quickly moved out of the accounting industry and over to the property industry, and I've done so now for the last 14 years. I moved to Melbourne, which is where I now live, and that was via Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So over the last 10 years, I've effectively been across those three cities, and now comfortably settled here in Melbourne with my wife and my son Jack, and also another one on the way. I've been a buyer's agent, so I've represented the buyer for the last 14 years. I've actually always been on the side of the buyer. It's the side that I enjoy the most, and I think it's gives me incredible freedom because I don't actually have to be involved in a particular property if I don't like it. When you act on behalf of the buyer, it's really a case of interviewing properties and finding out which one is the most suitable for the client. I'm currently the co-host of Location Australia, which was a top-rating series on Foxtel, and also prior to that we did a series called Relocation Australia, which is an adaptation of a very successful show in the UK of the same name without the Australia. And yes, it is the longest television name in history with the most syllables, and it is hard to get your mouth around, but I've enjoyed those two roles very much. And currently I'm a director and partner of Empower Wealth, so I juggle both responsibilities. When I'm not filming, I'm dealing with clients on a daily basis, and of course when we are filming the show, that sees me going to all corners of the country to see the beautiful real estate that we have on offer. Here's why I think you need to know what I am going to talk about in this presentation. I personally purchased a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. I've also helped property investors purchase across multiple states in Australia. In fact, I've helped clients buy in every state and territory across Australia. I've also helped people buy investment property on behalf of investors that are both nationally and internationally. I've, as I said before, I've bought property in every state and territory of Australia. And here's the thing that I'm most excited about. I think I've cracked the property investment code. I think there's a formula, and this particular formula, if applied in your property portfolio, I think you can have some really fantastic results. And I'm going to go through this particular formula at the end of the webinar. So be sure to stick around for that, because I think that's something that's a real takeaway for you that you can use and apply straight away. Just a quick testimonial. Paul Sherwin I met back in 1998, and through the journey, he said to me, for many years I was like most would-be investors. I was either too scared to invest or just never found that one person I could trust with such a huge step in my life. That all changed for me back in 1999 when I went along to an information session with a couple of my friends. There was a lot of information given on the night, but to be honest, I didn't understand too much of it. I decided to go back and listen more intently the following week, and I thought to myself, if I'm ever going to do anything about my retirement, now is the time. I made an appointment to see Bryce at his office. It turned out to be the best financial decision I have ever made. And sorry about that. And he goes on to say, With Bryce's help, we purchased 2 investment properties that year, and he was with us all the way to the time of settlement and beyond. The following year I made an additional purchase. Since then, I've purchased 5 more properties with Bryce's assistance and guidance. I'm a carpenter on wages, and because of that meeting with Bryce some 10 plus years ago, I'm looking forward to travelling Australia and semi-retirement in 2 to 3 years' time. I'd like to take the chance to thank Bryce on record for all he has done for me, my family, and all my friends. He has helped along the way towards reaching a brighter future. And I guess the point there is to say that this can actually be done. The topic of tonight is how to build a passive income through property investment. It's not a theory. It is, in fact, achievable, and Paul is now walking in those footsteps himself. Okay, so just to quickly show you, I've been involved in a number of the major publications. I've written articles on the particular topic that we're talking about tonight. I've appeared on The Project on Channel 10, Melbourne Property TV, and of course, as I mentioned, I'm currently the co-host of Relocation Australia and Location Australia on the Lifestyle Channel. So to say that my life is well and truly entrenched in property is a bit of an understatement. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate I get to see a lot of this country and meet some really great people along the way. Okay, so let's whip into it. Discover how you can create a passive income for life with property and free up your time to do whatever you want, all in 5 easy steps. Okay, so why is this important? I think I came across this particular statistic and I find it really intriguing, because it's really, for me, being involved in the property investment bubble and being involved with property quite a lot, it's easy to think that everyone is buying multiple properties. But if you have a look at this table here, this is an ATO table which shows that of the very small percentage of the population who actually do invest in property, and incidentally that's about 7 out of every 100 Australians in this country actually do take that step and buy investment property. So you can see it's a small percentage. Of that small percentage, a very large percentage of the population stop at 1. You can see from that table 73% of all property investors who lodge a tax return with the Australian Taxation Office have 1 investment property. And I actually found that quite staggering, because if you have a look to see the next one with 2 combined, that means about 91%, or 9 out of every 10 investors actually stop at 2 or less investment properties. And I find that it led me to think, why is that so? And I think there's a whole range of reasons. I wrote an article on why that is. If anyone wants a copy of that, I can make it available to you. But I think the important point here is those that have 3 investment properties represent about 5% of the investment market. And I'd really like you to keep that particular statistic in mind, because it's going to become more important further in the presentation, because I'm going to show you how it is possible to it is to build a portfolio of property so that you can build a passive income for life, and with as little as 3 investment properties. So I think that's really important, and maybe quite surprising to some of you as well, particularly those of you who are multiple property investors. It's also important to know that workers, I just pulled some headlines to show you that workers are forced to delay their retirement to grow their pension pots. That means they have to get work longer. This was an American headline: more Americans delaying retirement well into their 80s. And I picked up this one too: don't count on working longer. There's really 3 ways here, they suggest in this article, to achieve your retirement goals. 1 is to save money during your working years. 2 is to plan to spend less during retirement. And 3 is to work longer. And I don't know about you, but option 2 and option 3 really don't seem that appealing. So it's really how we can take advantage of our working years to set ourselves up better, so we have a much more comfortable retirement. Okay, so I told you the 5 steps. There will be 5 steps to building a passive income for life. They are: step 1 is to clarify, step 2 is to evaluate, step 3 is to plan, step 4 is the implementation, and step 5 is to manage. So that's the 5 steps, and I'm going to go through them all, each in turn. So I guess one of my biggest bugbears with when it comes to investing in property is the concept that there's a one-size-fits-all, and really there isn't, because people have different circumstances, and quite often I'm asked whether I believe in chasing growth or whether I believe in chasing yield. And my answer is simple. It's totally irrelevant which one you should be chasing until you've clarified up front what it is that you're actually looking to do and what your individual circumstances are. And I use the analogy of the doctor, and if you were going to get a checkup from your local GP and you walked in, sat down, said absolutely nothing, and then the GP started writing out a script and gave that to you and asked you to leave, you'd be feeling a little bit ripped off. You'd be feeling like they hadn't asked you any questions about your symptoms, they hadn't got to understand exactly what's going on for you, and they've made some assumptions and then come up with a solution that they think best fits you. And I think that, in my industry, that can happen quite a lot, where, the number one question if you are looking to buy is really, if someone is trying to sell something to you, the first question you ask them is, which is the right property for me? And if the answer is bricks and mortar, I think that should be approached with caution, because I think the real answer should be, I don't know which one is right for you. We really need to understand more about your circumstances to see what opportunities may sort of lie for you. Now, with clarifying, really what we're doing here is two things. One is collect, and the other one is to goal set. Now, with that collect, it's undertaking a personal financial fact find, so we can actually see what it is that your spending patterns look like, and to see what opportunities are available to you. And I think the analogy of the bath is really good in this particular circumstance, because for you to fill the bath full of water, there's a couple of ways that you can do that, or to maintain the water in the bath, sorry. Number one is you can keep putting water into the bath so that it keeps a steady flow in the bath. But the other way is to actually put a plug at the bottom of the bath. And I think that's a good analogy, because the plug is a bit like controlling money within your household, and the money coming, or the water coming into the bath, is a bit like the making of the money. And I think here with the clarifying, part of that collection through the fact find is understanding your spending habits, understanding where you're strong, understanding if there are any weaknesses, and look for opportunities to create a system so that you can be better with managing your household income and expenses, because that's really where the key is. The goal setting really is about setting some short, medium and long-term financial goals, and part of that is and the topic of this presentation is to create a passive income, but it's also probably to provide a future for your family, to provide a roof over your head, and of course take some holidays and smell the roses along the way as well. And it's often said that a man's state of mind is related to the state of his wallet. So it's important here to make sure that you are a good controller of money, as well as having some opportunity to make money. So the first step is really around that clarifying. Step number two is the evaluation. If we go back to that doctor analogy before, this is where once they have asked questions, taken some information and understood you quite well, they can then look to see what, really taking stock of your personal circumstances. And if you think about them, say, looking at an x-ray, that's where they can work out what strategy they need to put in place for you to be able to achieve what it is that you've said was your goal. And in that case, it obviously to return to better health, but in the context of financially, what are your goals? How do you want to achieve them? And how does the evaluation phase allow us to better understand that? So assessing them is to take stock of your personal circumstances, but then analysing to see what the opportunities are here, but also pinpointing some of the shortcomings that may exist, because not everyone is the same. Some people are more risk averse than others. Some people are prepared to take on more risk. Some people are in the early stage of their career, which means that they've got more time on their side. Other people are on the latter stage of their career, and means that time is really of the essence. So this is where we start to think about who we need to if it was the doctor, would they bring in the anaesthetist? Would they need to bring in a surgeon? If it was delivering a baby, they'd need to bring in a midwife or an obstetrician. When it's to do with your financial objectives, here it's whether you bring in a finance advisor. Do you need a property selection specialist? Can you get someone to help you with cash flow projection? The solicitor to help you transact on the property. There's a whole range of things at this point where we start to evaluate what the opportunities are and who we need to assemble as part of our team. Okay, step 3 is the plan, and I think this is really the most important part of the entire process to achieving that passive income. And I also think it's the absolute hardest step to do, because it's difficult to cash flow into the future for both your investing and for real life. And really what I like to do is cash flow not only for property related expenses but also provisioning for life related expenses, whether that's children's school fees, whether that's buying a new home, whether that's doing some renovations down the track, whether that's childcare. There's a whole range of things that need to be considered, not just in isolation with the property investment. So really here it comes down to 2 parts, the strategy and the tactics. And really the tactics will win the battle, but the strategy will win the war. And really this is where we understand what strategy we're going to undertake, whether that's chasing some growth properties in the early stage, and then towards the latter stage to help us retire some debt. Maybe that's chasing more income. Or again, if you're at a latter stage of your working life, we may need to chase some income first. That'll be part of our strategy, and then hopefully retire the debt as quickly as we can. So it really is the hardest part, but it really needs to serve 2 purposes. It needs to be the roadmap to help you control the money, as well as the roadmap to help you make the money. And that model should really include cash flow, debt, investment performance, equity, as well as that future provisioning. And as I said, this is the most crucial part, but it also is one of the most difficult parts to do as well. Step number 4 is the implementation, and really the first part is to find and assess, and then the second part is to deliver. And finding the property, I think this is where most people start. It's the doing. It's the looking at the bricks and mortar. But you can see I've actually put this as step number 4, because those 3 steps prior to actually the doing, the implementation, are very crucial. And I've seen it time and time again where people get caught up in the bricks and mortar too early without getting the house in order prior to this particular stage. So really the finding and assessing is, am I going to find the property on market, off market? Could it be a silent sale? But when you've actually found the property, we then need to work out, does it actually work, in terms of assessment? Does it work to the plan that we've set up in step 3? Do we need growth or do we need yield? What is the growth that we need? What is the yield that we need? And then once we've found the properties, how do we assess whether that's a good one or a bad one? So I'll give you an example on the next slide, what the framework that we go through when I'm buying real estate for myself and on behalf of clients. But ultimately it comes down to 2 parts, finding and assessing it, and then the deliver, the skill of acquiring the asset in the most beneficial and favourable terms for you, the buyer, and that's crucial. So let's have a look at that framework. Really, it's this is the telescope, looking through the telescope, not the microscope, because you can see one of the biggest mistakes that a property investor can make is seeing that Australia, if that's where they're investing, they could invest overseas, but if they're investing in Australia, one of the biggest mistakes you can see is that seeing Australia as one big market is a huge mistake, because anyone who is experienced in buying properties across the borders, you'll know that they move in different cycles, and someone who can effectively buy into the state that has the best opportunity at the point in time when you're buying will give themselves the best chance of an outperform result, but also giving themselves or giving their portfolio the best chance of getting the objectives that we've set up in the previous few steps. So in this case, you choose the state and then the suburb and work out which particular suburb you want to be focusing on. Now, to give you an indication, there's 15,000 plus suburbs in this country, so there is quite a few suburbs to get through. But I think really, if you're chasing growth, you want to be chasing areas that have the highest likelihood of having incomes within the suburb that are above average for the area. because really when it comes down to is having the ability to borrow money so that you can pay higher prices for property as they go up in value. And those with higher incomes have a better ability to borrow more money, and which is typically why you're closer to the CBD suburbs have often outperformed, because that's where most people want to live who have that city lifestyle. And the closer you get to the city, the more expensive it becomes. But really, those people who can afford to live closer to the city are usually the ones on the higher incomes and have the likelihood of their incomes growing in value as well. So again, that's a really important point to narrow in on suburbs that have above average income for that growth potential. If it's a yield play, that's a totally different set of circumstances. Quite often, a lot of the yield plays are away from the capital cities. And so that's a totally different set of criteria. But really you can start to see that we're narrowing down. We've identified which state we want to get involved in, then we've got to identify based on our plan in step 3 what particular suburb it is that we want to focus on before we get down to, I guess, the nitty-gritty. With, locally within our business, we have a research committee where we're doing some really solid research to find out where the pent-up demand is. We actually find out what clearance rates are per property type, per bedroom, so that we can really see not only just the general, statistic of clearance rates, but also specific clearance rates within specific property classes and specific bedroom types as well. And that really does give us an advantage to see where the next hotspot is. Street property and due diligence. You know yourself in the suburb that you live in that there's better streets than others. We're really looking for lifestyle indicators here, close to the amenities, close to the public transport, close to the parks, if there's period properties, if there's tree-lined streets, all of the things that make the streets the most desirable. That's what we're looking for, because again, if we want to get an outperformed result, those are the particular properties that are in the highest demand. When people go to buy them, they use a lot of emotion for that. Logic goes out the window, and that's really helpful for you as a property investor. The property, there's millions and millions of properties in this country. How do you know which one to buy? I think really what you should look for here is property that has scarcity, that is investment grade, and has owner-occupier appeal. And I know that saying owner-occupier appeal can sound a little contradictory if you're investing, but if 70% of the market is owner-occupiers, it makes sense that you should be buying a property as an investor that has the widest appeal. And the point that I make here is if someone is emotionally attached to a property, which can happen quite a lot when it comes to owner-occupier appeal, logic goes out the window and price can be driven by those emotional links to the property. So if you can have the skill of knowing which property has the best owner-occupier appeal, that is investment grade, that has some scarcity, chances are that you will get an outperformed result. And then you've got to do your due diligence. It's important to know that searching on the internet is not researching. There is so much more that goes into the due diligence, understanding demographics, understanding clearance rates, understanding supply and demand in the particular suburb, understanding the breakdown of who lives in the suburb, understand what drivers are actually causing people to want to be in a suburb and desire particular properties, because all of these are really important to you as a property investor. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to live in these properties. They really are a bricks and mortar bank account. They are a means to an end, and really you want to find properties that have the best chance of giving you the best result so that you can, I guess, create that passive income much sooner and as large as you possibly can. And then the last point is negotiation. And if you don't negotiate all day, every day as part of your job, this can be quite difficult, because really you're up against a sales agent who one of their skills or one of their tools that they have in their bag is to make sure that they are good negotiators. So that's an important point for you to make sure that you do sharpen up your negotiation skills, because you are up against it when you go against a real estate agent or a sales agent. And then the final step is really the managing. It's the monitoring, and this is really where you measure and monitor. And I guess I met a client a couple of years ago. She worked for Qantas. She's a flight attendant, international flight attendant. She lives in Sydney. She flies from Sydney to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to London, stays over in London for the weekend, and then does the reverse, flies from London to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Sydney, on a six-figure income. When I met her, she said that she bought a property in Harbour, which is in Sydney's North Shore, a 2-bedroom apartment. That was back in 2002. She was on a good income. Her plan was to buy an investment property each and every year from that point forward because she was in a strong position. So I met her a couple of years ago, which was 2010, so that was 8 years after she bought that first property. So it makes sense that if you extrapolate that out, her plan was to buy one property each year from that point on. She'd probably have 6, 7, 8 properties. So I asked her the question, how many do you have? And she said one, which is probably not that surprising given the stats that we showed earlier. But the plan was to buy multiple properties, and yet the reality was that she didn't get to do that. So that's why this 5th step here, the managing, is a bit like the doctor doing the checkup. You need to go back and see if everything that they put in place, the plan, the implementation, is actually achieving the outcomes which we set out to achieve. How does it stack up against the plan? And then the monitoring is it everything on track? And does any fine-tuning need to be done to make sure that we are on track? So there's the 5 steps. If we recap what they were, the first one was clarify, to make sure that we know exactly what we're dealing with and what the circumstances are specifically for you. Second one is the evaluate phase, to make sure that we know what opportunities and shortcomings that you have. The third one is a plan. Again, I mentioned that was the hardest part, but fundamentally the most crucial part of the process. The 4th step is the implementation, the doing, the actual acquiring of the property in this case, under the best terms and conditions possible. And then the 5th step was really the manage. So you can start to see how this is now coming together. The first 2 really form part of the opportunity. The second 2 parts of the second 2 steps really are the action, the doing, the planning, and the implementation. And then the 3rd phase really is that review. And again, if you do all of these 5 steps well, chances are that you will build a portfolio of property that really achieves all of your retirement outcomes. So let's pull this together. I've got a case study here using the 5 steps so you can see how it all works. And this is the process that we went through specifically with this particular couple. They're in their mid-30s. They have an income situation of $80,000 and $40,000. The current surplus is $424 per month. They've got a principal place of residence worth $575,000. It's a 3-bedroom home. They have a $300,000 mortgage. They owe $9,500 on their credit cards and a car loan. And they want a provision not only for retirement, but also the more intermediate needs of school fees. They want to upgrade the car, and at some point in time, anyone with small children knows that it's important that you factor in holidays, and for these guys they wanted to factor in an overseas holiday. So these are the parameters that we needed to consider when we were building a plan that allowed these guys to consider passive income. So really the strategy here was to restructure them for optimal finance structure, and that's to make sure they trap surplus cash flow, put some disciplines in place to make sure that they use their money to best purpose. This strategy was to look at purchasing up to 3 investment properties. The goal is to be debt-free in retirement, and I guess that also holding the assets in retirement was the plan. We wanted to put best practice cash flow management in place, so building a system to make sure that they're not financially hemorrhaging or wasting any of the money that comes into the family household. And the goal here was to help them get $50,000 each in passive income. So really, this is how we went about doing it. Now, there's a lot of information here. Don't get too alarmed here. Really what I want you to do is focus on the graph, where the blue represents the value of the principal place of residence over time. The silver or grey section represents the value of their superannuation, and the yellow is what I find the most important. It's the debt, and showing how they can retire some debt. So if we were to simply restructure their mortgage here and help them ensure that their surplus was trapped and paid into the mortgage, and once they paid off the mortgage, they put the additional amount into super. What you'd actually find here is they'd be debt-free for quite a period of time, but then towards the end, to be able to sustain that $50,000 each per annum in retirement, they would move into a reverse mortgage situation, which you can see by the spike of the yellow line towards the end. So not a bad result, but I think we can do it better, because really if we move from mortgage restructure, or in this case they'd have a nest egg, which is the value of their assets that doesn't include the family home, of a little over $1 million, and largely that would be represented in super, and the passive income at this point in time would be about $20,000 each. So we're not achieving their goal of $50,000 under this scenario. So what we did is we then had a look at the model. If we were to purchase one investment property, and this one's a growth investment property. So you can see that now we've got some red in the graph, which represents the investment property, and you can see now that we've effectively not in a position where towards the end of retirement they will go into a reverse mortgage situation. So this is actually a bit of a success here. You'll see that their net or their nest egg is bumped up to almost $2.5 million, but they actually haven't achieved, in this scenario, they would have about $45,000 each passive income in retirement, which doesn't quite achieve our goal. So what we'd have to do in this situation is look to build an entire portfolio, and this is what we did for these particular clients. And what I'm showing you here is a snapshot of a very sophisticated simulation that we can do by gathering, like I said in step one, it's the gathering of the information. We can then put that into our simulator and project cash flows for a 40-year period. And really this is the value, because we now start to build a blueprint. You know, as I said in step three, we're building a plan that we can use to then refer to see how we're going. And you see in this case the yellow line does go down to zero, so the debt is totally retired. We've got a situation here where the net or the nest egg is 3.79 million, but excitingly the actual passive income jumped up to 150,000 or 75,000 between them. So you can see now the results of the overall picture here for this particular couple. If they were to do nothing, their overall nest egg would be about 1.2 million. Now that's in tomorrow's dollars, so we have to discount that back. So the value in today's dollars of that nest egg would be worth about $591,500, and the passive income in today's dollars would be about 23,000. So not enough for them to achieve what they're looking to achieve. You can see in the second column, if they did some restructure, you'd see that their passive income actually jumps up to 40,000, but still well short of what we're looking to do here. But still much better than if they actually did nothing. They'd pay the mortgage off quicker, and there'd be an opportunity to put more money into super. So you can see that there's a superior outcome. But what I really like about this is if they go into one property, they almost get the outcome that they're looking for at $96,000 their passive income. And you can see that the nest egg is looking quite healthy. But if they were to build a portfolio, and we're talking 2 growth properties and 1 yield property here, they'd actually achieve $151,000 in passive income. And I know that's a little bit simplistic, but what we've done here is we projected cash flow on a month-to-month basis and focused on retiring debt, growing the asset base, and also making sure that we're in a position that we can actually borrow the money, so that borrowing the money from the bank is the crucial part here, and we've checked the loan to valuation ratio. So the global picture has been considered here, and it's also factored in those daily I guess provisions that we talked about before in terms of the kids' school fees, the holiday overseas, and also upgrading the car. So I think that's a significant result. And what I think is really exciting about this particular point here is I'm not talking about buying, 10 properties, 20 properties, 30 properties. Really, this particular model has been done from a couple that are in their mid-30s who have a couple of children, so quite typical, and it's about buying having one principal place of residence, and in this case 3 investment properties. So overall 4 properties. And if you look back to that graph that I showed earlier, about 5% of the market, 5% of those who actually do end up investing in property only get to 3 or more properties. So it is a very small percentage of the population, but it's actually quite simple to do. It's certainly not easy, but it's quite simple to do. And I think that the important point here is, again, this is real life. We've done all of the 5 steps that we've talked about previously. We've clarified up front to make sure we understand what the expenses are within the household, down to the the weekly spend in the overall household. We've evaluated where they're at. They're in their mid-30s. They've got some opportunities. They've got a little bit of time on their side. We know that they are quite conservative, so we need to be conservative in the building of this portfolio. Step 3 is the plan. So we've built a very robust plan that factors, that models not only property-related expenses but also lifestyle-related expenses. Step 4 is the implementation. So they would go through that process that I showed you in terms of turning the macro into the micro. So we know which state, which suburb, which street, which type of property, the due diligence, and then the negotiation. And then really for this to bear some fruit, step 5 is crucial. It's the managing. It's to make sure that they're on track. Make sure that the restructure is done in a way that they are trapping surplus. They're using that surplus to offset against their debt, and then using also that surplus as an opportunity to look for ways to grow their asset base, increase the amount of opportunity they have, and as you can see in this particular simulation, achieve the objectives that they set out to achieve in step 1 through the the goal setting. So I think that's pretty exciting. Now, I mentioned to you before that we think we've cracked the property investment formula. I think it really is 4 parts. The first part is asset selection, and that's really crucial. You've got to buy the right assets. You've got to be able to make sure that you pick the properties that are going to give you the best chance of getting these outperforming results. The second part of that is borrowing power, and I think that borrowing capacity is a really crucial part, and I think if you are serious about building a portfolio of property, it's important that you get an investment savvy finance strategist on your team, because the structure and I mean, it's so much more than just interest rates and establishment costs. It's structure, it's line of credits, it's buffers, it's making sure that we are thinking 2 or 3 properties in advance in this in this particular reference. So borrowing power is absolutely crucial. Part 3 is cash flow management, and as you can see from the modelling that we've done, this is crucial, and it really gives you that roadmap so that you can see how you're going and reference back to it, so that you can have some comfort in knowing that yes, you are embarking in a situation where you will be getting into some good debt, but at least you know that even when the times are when your cash flow is going backwards, say if one partner has to stop to go for maternity leave, or for whatever reason your income actually stops for a period of time, it's important to know that you can get through that period without having to sell any of the assets, because that's what you want to hold on to. That's the goose that's laying the golden egg in retirement for you. And then the part 4 is really the defense. If you're going to all this trouble to build a portfolio that will enable you to build a passive income for life, you're going through the understanding of how to use other people's money through the banks to build this portfolio. It's important that you have a defense mechanism in place, and that's really making sure that you've got insurance in place to cover you in the event that anything unforeseen actually happens to you. So I guess now, with that in mind, we built a team here at Empower Wealth around those very 4 things. Once we cracked the formula, we thought it was important to make sure that we practice what we preach. So I guess within our team there's me as a buyer's agent. We've also got Kate Bakos, who we've nicknamed the property hunter, who's in the market 7 days a week. She's a very, very good eye for property, and she was headhunted to be a part of Empower Wealth because she has a very analytical background, but also an intuitive feel for what makes for a good investment property. Then when it comes to the borrowing power, we've got Cameron Morgan and Justin Burgess. So really, these guys have come in as number 36 on the top 100 mortgage brokers in this country. So they didn't do that because they focused on price. They didn't do that because they focused on interest rate. They did that because they focused on structure and strategy. And enabling their clients to build portfolios of property and understanding what it takes to build a portfolio of property. When it comes to cash flow management, which is part 3 of the property investment formula, we've got Michael Pope, who's an MBA. He's got a diploma in financial services. He has a Bachelor of Engineering, and this guy is an expert when it comes to financial modelling software. I always say he's forgotten more than I know when it comes to cash flow. So he really rounds out the other two of the asset selection and the borrowing power. And then we've got Michael Savvy, who's our financial planner within the business. He's got a Bachelor of Commerce, he's a certified financial advisor, and he's an SMSF specialist advisor with the Self-Managed Super Fund Professionals Association of Australia. So in terms of putting that defence in place, he has that well and truly covered. And then to bring this all together, Ben Kingsley, who's the chairman of PIPA, which is the Property Investment Professionals of Australia, which is an organisation wanting to bring in regulation into the property investment industry so that there is a code of ethics and there is a procedure and a process that you go through for anyone who wants to advise clients when it comes to property investment. Ben's also the CEO and founder of Empower Wealth. So we're really excited about the team that we've got, because if we think of the property investment formula as all about asset selection, borrowing power, cash flow management, and defence, we've really pulled together a really awesome team to enable us to advise our clients to make sure that's in place. And really, it's not good enough just to have the formula. You need to have the experience around that formula as well, and that's where Ben comes into the picture, because he's a qualified property investment analyst, and he uses that experience and that wisdom to build the strategy that suits each particular client that we see. We've also got some respect in the industry in terms of Ben and Kate have both appeared on Your Money, Your Call on Sky Business News. We're also regular features on Melbourne Property TV on a lot of the panels. As I said before, we've just won some awards within our mortgage broking division, and we've come in at the top 100, number 36 in the top 100 for the brokers across the country, so we are in the elite category there. We've also been asked to write many articles on the particular topic that we're talking about today, about how to build passive income through property investment. So we've been writing and contributing to that magazine for some time now, and also the well-respected Money magazine has asked us, myself and Ben, to contribute to their magazine as well, again on the topic of property investment and what it takes to find properties that outperform the market. So really, if any of this is resonating with you and you're interested in building a passive income yourself, hopefully I've demonstrated that there is a process that you need to go through, and hopefully the exciting part that I think is really powerful is you don't need to be buying hundreds and hundreds of properties. It can be quite achievable to buy just a handful of investment properties to achieve the passive income for life that you're hoping to get through property investment. So I guess if anyone is interested in a complimentary consultation, what we would do is we'd take you through that financial health check through steps 1 and 2, and then we'd build a tailored wealth projection so that you can actually see where you're headed, and it'd be a good roadmap for you to see if you're on track for your financial goals and objectives, or whether there needs to be some fine-tuning. And I guess part of that is through mortgage optimization. Interestingly, anyone who has any material income generally parks that in property, usually their principal place of residence, and for most people that in the early stage that includes a mortgage. So really optimizing the mortgage and getting that under control is really a crucial part. And then of course we'll talk about the defense strategy to make sure that you have all of the risk taken care for you, so that the holistic view of your situation is being looked out for. I guess the question I ask you is, what will a passive income for life mean for you? And it means different things to different people. It could be spending more time with the family, buying new cars, overseas holidays, or providing for your children. So I think that's the exciting part here. It's a very simple process. It's not easy, but it's a very simple process. And if you get this under control, chances are these sorts of things, or whatever it is that's important to you, can be quite achievable. Now, Here's some clients that we've dealt with. That, they sought referrals to professionals. There was a streamlined approach to our needs. It was second to none. We sought referrals to professionals relating to our finance needs and are very pleased to say that our expectations and needs were met or exceeded. The smoothness with which the process of purchasing our first investment property occurred has only further enhanced our belief that the Empower Wealth team are the best in the field. The Empower Wealth team have helped us out immensely over the last 3 years. They've helped us to buy a property and all the administration, loans and work that comes along with that. Most importantly, however, they have offered us financial advice, and they go on to say it's got great attention to detail, and I can't recommend them enough. And the third one here is every aspect was taken care of. So the process was seamless. They had complete faith in Empower Wealth's expertise, and if any issues arise, they can confidently contact Empower Wealth. So again, if any of this is resonating with anyone who's viewing this presentation, I'd certainly encourage you to get in contact with us and have that complimentary consultation, because we'd be more than happy to talk to you about the financial health check in your particular circumstances, create a tailored wealth projection so you can see where you're going, again talk about that mortgage optimization and the defence strategy, but at the end of the day help you take that first step to building a wealthier tomorrow. So if that's you, I'd certainly encourage you to go to our website, empowerwealth.com.au/passive income, and if you go there you can get started today. There's a form that you can fill in, some detail that you can read, and we'd be more than happy to chat with you. And I'm so confident that we could add value to your story. If we couldn't add at least $50,000 to the value of your story, I'm saying that if you did take up that offer to have a complimentary consultation with us, and you felt at the end of that consultation that it was a waste of your time or there wasn't any value added to your particular circumstances, just tell us. 100% guaranteed. We'll give you a couple of gold class movie tickets to say thanks for coming. We apologise that you didn't get any value. No questions asked. I'm really confident that you will get lots of value, but that's how confident that we are that what we're doing here is adding real value and helping clients build a passive income for life. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope it's helped you. The 5 steps to building a passive income for life through property. Step 1, clarify. Step 2, evaluate. Step 3 is to plan. Step 4 is to implement. And step 5 is to manage. Thanks very much for your time. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to get in contact with us. We'd love to chat with you, and hopefully if you feel that this is applicable to you, go to that particular address, empowerwealth.com.au/passive income, and I look forward to chatting to you soon.